because I always forget to do that. And there we are recording now. Okay. So it is about 7 minutes after, and after that little introduction, let's just go right into looking at the images. Let me share this. Okay, and I need to get a second window open here. Okay. I don't have, while I'm sharing screen, I don't have a chat window open. So if you need to tell me anything or say anything, just do it vocally because I won't see that window at this point. All right, so our first up is Amelia. Let me pull this down to where I can get at my different views. All right. And we'll just kind of, there's slight differences between your originals and your edited ones. And that's really, at this point, I think that's for me to look at and to if I have any comments about what you did, positive or negative, I'll tell you. But I really think that we're just going to look at the edited ones here and have you tell us what we're looking at first of all, and what your thought process was in creating it. So this is shadow, obviously. This was shadow. Yeah, actually, both images look like shadow rather than silhouette.
Yeah, in my defense, I didn't exactly have the best environment to work in because it was really gross outside last night, and I had been busy, like doing other things at any other time during the day. So I didn't have many options, so I apologize.
Well, that's okay. I'll make some comments to you after we look at your images, but let's just see what we've got here first of all.
So this one was just me telling my boyfriend to make a dynamic pose.
That's his version of dynamic is, well, I mean, it's the goalpost pose.
Yeah.
But
depending on how you look at it, it kind of looks like a body.
Like a chalk outline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have actually been an interesting, if you had, I'm not sure how you would have played that up even a little more, but yeah, it does a little bit.
You know what the worst part about that is? I didn't think of that until you mentioned it, and I have chalk.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to do that. Like, I don't think it's something I would have thought of either. But yeah, looking at this image, if you had just outlined his position in chalk, that would have been what almost looks like. So, you see you see it on a lot of sci-fi films and things like that, where, an atomic explosion leaves, something like that. So it's another idea that could have been just carried it a step further. But I do see obviously what it is. It's a little bit, and again, you're shooting here at night, so you have some challenges as far as getting things sharp and in focus and so forth. I did not look at the metadata, but let's take. Well, it's not showing up.
Yeah, I had to fight tooth and nail to get like some sort of noise reduction because it was nasty.
Yeah, it probably. I'm guessing that your light levels were very low. I don't know what the ISO was, but obviously that was up kind of high to be able to get this. But
I believe it was either 3200 or 6400. I don't actually remember.
Yeah, those are extreme ISOs for most consumer cameras. And you do need to run some type of noise reduction software after the fact, because the sensors and the processors that are in those cameras just aren't not quite up to snuff. I would say most of you guys probably, unless it's in a case like this where you really have to, I'd really, really try to keep the ISO under 800. You could maybe push it to 1600 once in a while, but just recognize that if you go beyond that, that you are going to have some significant noise. And that's not always a problem, depending on the subject matter, but it does require a little bit of work. And I'm just looking at some overall softness, which is going to be difficult to get an image like this in focus, working under those lighting conditions. And I'm guessing that your other image, and let's look at this one, which is basically done at the same time, kind of the same idea, probably the same person, right?
No, actually. So we have this running joke in our friend group that he he looks like a gorilla in every picture taken of him. So we were coming out of the Union, and I was like, "Go stand over there and look as Sasquatchy as possible." So I tried to, it's not quite silhouette.
Yeah, and so here's the thing with silhouette, and I saw this with a couple of other images here as well. You actually had what you needed there to create a silhouette. The problem is all about angle, all about camera angle. So
Gotcha.
there is a strong light source. What you needed to do is get that light source. You needed to get your subject between the light source and your camera.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being, looking at like camera here, subject here, and then light source out here, had you aligned yourself so that the light source was directly behind the subject, that would have been really, really easy. It looks like it's fairly high up, so you would have had to have been on the ground to do that. But it would have been possible to create that silhouette. So that's what it comes down to really with silhouettes, is that you're reducing it to, strangely enough, we're trying to create these three-dimensional images most of the time. But for a silhouette, you're almost reducing it to 2 dimensions by shooting it at such an angle that you've reduced your subject to a shape only. And that'll do it for you. That's generally what is required. In this case, because because the light's coming from right to left instead of basically right back at the camera, that's why you had the issue. It does look like every picture of Sasquatch I've ever seen, that he's running sideways and away from camera or whatever. By the way, for as many people who have tried to get something like that, I go back and forth. I've had people ask me things like, the shows that are on like Ghost Hunters and stuff like that. Do you believe that that's real? Here's what I believe. I believe that technology has progressed to the point where we've got thousands and thousands of people that have spent years trying to record some type of phenomenon like that, and nobody ever has. So that tells you something. You watch those shows, Ghost Hunters, and they're so contrived and so fake and over the top, that no. And is there a creature somewhere that we haven't found yet? Yes, but it's probably more than likely on the bottom of the ocean, because we just haven't been able to get down there. But is it in the woods near Cleveland, Ohio? No, I don't think so. Nor is it probably even in Tibet. But I think we've been around most of those places. So this is probably as close as we're ever going to get to seeing Sasquatch. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
No problem.
But I do like the fact that you have reduced the image to really a subject, and we've got a little bit of highlight on the building and what looks like a trash can there, but it's mostly in shadow. So you have reduced it, and he is casting shadow. So you could make a case that you've done 2 shadow images. But and I think I might have a couple of images later for us to look at that. This comes into play where you're reducing, we've talked about this a number of times, reducing the distracting elements in an image. If there's anything in there that draws your attention, draws your eye, that is not your subject, then you want to get rid of it. And one of the ways to do that is to use darkness like this, whether it's artificially done in editing software, or if it's done with the lighting at the time. So that helps, definitely helps. I probably would have, just looking at this, and I know why you probably didn't, I probably would have cropped it in a little tighter to eliminate a little bit of the dead negative space. But
fair enough.
I have a feeling that you were, if you think about all the pictures that you do see of supposedly of Sasquatch, they're not exactly tightly cropped pictures, because they're not close to them. They're from a distance, and you're just seeing a little shadow moving and so forth. Same thing with the Loch Ness Monster. why are all the pictures of the Loch Ness monster and UFOs, why are they all out of focus? Just a question, just a random question. Anyway, all right. So, oops, I need to get we need to do I always forget to create this folder. So, do you have a favorite of the two?
I really like the Sasquatch one, but I don't know if it like fits because it was supposed to be my silhouette one, and
Well,
it like isn't.
it is still a shadow image, so we do have a shadow in there, so we can consider it for that. I think it is probably the more striking of the two. So
Mm.
we'll make that our, if I can get it. Whoops, not apparently going to work that way. I got to go back to this view. All right. All right, Ashton's up next. So again, kind of a simple image. The interplay of light and shadow on the wall. I do like the fact that there's a couple of things, even though it is a simple image. When you light something that has a little texture to it from an oblique angle, I like what it does there. I like how the texture on the wall is a little more pronounced. The camera angle is a little unique, so that to me is kind of cool. It does create these diagonals. I love the shallow depth of field, that not only the lights up in the background are way out of focus, but even some of the lights in the string, just because of whether it's distance or something else that you did here. I kind of like, there is a point of focus, there is sharpness in the center of that light string, so it doesn't bother me at all that those lights on the right hand side are out. Like I said, it's a simple image, so it's not the most dynamic thing I've ever seen, but there were a couple of decisions made that I think were pretty smart decisions. I wonder if this one, I like the warmth of it, but I wonder if this one could have been one that might have benefited from black and white too. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. It's either, I think I would have done one or two things. I either would have gone black and white, or I would have really, really accentuated the warmth even more, because I think I think I might have gone in that direction actually, because this one is a really interesting, it could be anyway, with the warmth that it's got. And again, it looks like goalposts up there. Everybody's doing football this week. Hey, 9-0, for those of you that understand what that means. So yeah, that's your shadow image, I guess, and then silhouette. So a lot of people went with trees because it is one of the easiest silhouettes, especially around sunset. The only, and this is a problem that we have in society today because of technology, is those damn power lines. I hate power lines in a picture. So again, if I can envision this without the power lines, I like it a whole lot better. It's just that's to me a bit of a distraction, and they're just so hard to get away from because they're everywhere. Why we haven't developed into a society that buries that stuff underground it's just beyond me. It's like every time we get wind, it rips down power lines and power poles, and power goes out. I think parts of Elm Grove are still without power. It's been since the weekend, and it's just, we seem like these little ants that build our little ant hill, and then the rains come along and wash it all away, and we start all over again. How long is it going to take us for us to figure out this isn't the most efficient way to do this? Let's figure out another way. And it's just a bit of an eyesore, but it is a silhouette. And it is, again, because the light source, which is the sunset, is behind the subject. So you're kind of in line, which is what is required for creating this. And there's very little light in relationship to the amount of light in the background. There's really not much light being reflected back into the tree. So that's why this is an easy silhouette subject. Like the color in your background. Again, time of day and exposure are really critical on a shot like this. You got that. It goes, from a very light blue to very dark at the top. So that's, it's a good shot for something like that. It worked. Do you, between the two, which one would you say is your favorite?
I like the shadow one.
Shadow, okay.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do. I like the other one too. It's just that it's a little, like you see a lot of that. It's a little more ordinary, I guess. And this one has a little bit. I really do want to see. Let me just open this for a second and see if I can. You're not going to see this right away because I'm still sharing the other screen. But let me kind of quickly see if I can process this a little differently, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and do it. It's maybe not. This is just a quick version of it. It's maybe not the best, but we'll just compare the two and see if we like it better. So I'll just save it back into the same folder, and then we'll be able to compare. All right. So are you seeing both images now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that it's a little, the warmth is there, but it's a little wimpy on the warmth side. You know what I mean? Like this is one that I think if you really bump it up, and this wasn't done with hue and saturation, it was actually a plug-in that increases the brilliance and warmth in an image. It just has that feeling. If you compare the two, it has more of a really warm, inviting feeling, I think, than the other one does. Color balance probably even could have been adjusted a little bit to bring this out to get almost to the point where we are on the right. But I just wanted to see what could be done with it. Again, it's not the most dynamic shot, but it is. It does have some things going for it. So, all right, let's go down to. So Abby is not here again. She and Alana are involved in something with the band and a recording session or something. So they are out this week and last week. So she's still naming her photos. This one is it's called I Just Thought It Was Neat. And so, yeah, we're doing hand puppets on the wall. So that's our shadows. And they are, that's obviously one of the easiest types of shadows to create. But again, I'm seeing a problem here with sharpness. The shadows on the wall are not either in focus or I'm guessing that's what it is because the wall itself does not look sharp. But the idea still comes across. It's sharp enough that we can see what it is. And it's not the rat. It's actually her hands. This one I'm not sure how she created, but it's called It Could Be a Dinosaur. And it really could be the head of a dinosaur. I can see the mouth there on the right-hand side, the lower side. Again, it's not sharp. It's a little out, and maybe that's intentional. I don't know. You do still see the shape of it, but I don't know if having that more in focus, it would have destroyed that effect. I doubt that it would have. I think it would have maybe enhanced it a little bit. So I'm not really sure why we've got that. I do kind of like the, whatever the light source is that's on the wall behind looks like it's kind of coming down in a spotlight fashion to kind of give it it's just a couple of things going on here that I'm not quite sure. Almost looks like a reflection on a table. I don't know. Without her being here, it's hard for me to make assumptions about what it is exactly that I'm looking for. But at least she saw something that probably most people wouldn't have or would have bypassed. So next one is called The Lady and the Rat, which we did expect to see the rat at least one more time. And then this one is called The End. So the problem with this, I'm assuming that she was going for the silhouette here, and it's the same issue, Amelia, that you had, is that the light source is, we don't have a lineup of light source, subject, and camera. So the fact that she's looking down on these, it's close, you know, it is definitely darker on this side, but the fact she's looking down instead of straight out, we're not creating two-dimensional shapes that are totally backlit. You can see a lot of light spilling onto the backs of these little guys, and that's all because of that. I think the idea is cute. I think she's got some I like somebody that has fun with this. Let's put it that way. And she's definitely had fun with this throughout the semester, using these little things. I had a guy who took both classes last year, who was into these little Star Wars figurines, and he did an amazing job of photographing them and making them look real, like changing the scale to the point where it really looked like these little figurines were real. In fact, the first one I saw, I thought they were. I just thought they were life size the way they were done. So it's kind of fun to see people play with stuff like that. I don't know. I think probably because of the fact that it's recognizable and just a cute image, we're going to throw that one in. The silhouettes really didn't work as well. This one it's nice, but I have an issue with the focus. I wish I was more in focus. All right, Haley. Is Haley? I'm looking at my. All right, so this is silhouette, obviously. Yep. I think. So two things. I do like the moodiness of this. I like the exposure is a little bit under, but I think it kind of works for this. I think that if you had raised the exposure, you still would have had a silhouette if you had raised it a little bit, but you probably would have, probably would have lost the that drama in the clouds. I think if you'd gone much lighter with this, it looks like you have a couple of dust spots on your sensor still. Can you see those?
I didn't know what that was. I was
right here in the middle, and then over here on the right hand side, it looks like a couple of dust spots on the sensor, and they're easy to fix, to get out of the image, but they are, anytime you photograph something that has sort of a continuous tone, you're going to see those, and they'll be in the same spot every time. So a couple of things that come to mind here. Compositionally, let's just take a look. I'm gonna open this and crop it, and we'll take it back in and see. Again, we'll just see if it makes an improvement. First of all, it's going to take out your spots. All right, let me save this as, and we'll get a new version of it in there. I'm going to lighten it too, just a little bit. I'm just curious to see how far we can go. We'll try it there and see. Okay. So I cropped it down into a slimline because I noticed that, just the way the buildings are, and I know you wanted to include a lot of the sky because of the clouds, but I think the best part of those clouds is actually down lower, and creating a slimline out of this first of all, it takes away your dust spots, but it also takes away, a little bit of sky detail that we really don't need in order to get the point across. And anytime you stray away from standard aspect ratio, you gain a little bit of interest because it's a little different. It's a little unique. You do have to be careful of doing this, depending on what you're going to do with your images. And in this case, with you guys, the sky's the limit. You can crop these any way you want. The problem comes is, okay, I got this shot, I really like it, now I want to get it framed, and it's a 12.3 by an 18.6, and you're unless you have a custom frame made, you're just not going to be able to do that. I was working yesterday with a landscape photographer who's based out of Pittsburgh, and he photographs in national parks all over the country in Canada. and I help him edit his images for, he sells a ton of these things. And there was one image that we had a bit of an issue with the sky, which would have been helped immensely by cropping it down a little bit, but it would have changed the aspect ratio. And all of his images, we have templates designed in specific sizes. And so we couldn't do that without, losing all four sides. So it's not always possible, but when it is, and I do, when I'm cropping an image like for a client, I can still do this as long as I make sure that I've got whole inches, like, I'm not doing a 0.4 or something like that, because I can get frames in any inch lengths as long as they're not, fractional. And they're not all that expensive, especially, you can't walk into Walmart and find one like that, but with my suppliers, I can get them in any size I want. But I do have to be careful when you crop down like this to make sure that you have at least something that you can work with along those lines. But what do you think? Do you think it's better that way or the other way?
I definitely think it's better the way you did it.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how much more impact that lower cloud on the left now has. It's the same cloud that was there in the other image, but suddenly it's got all this, it's been given foreground attention now, and it's just a lot more in your face kind of thing. So I kind of like that. I think that, silhouette wise, that makes a little more of a dynamic image. All right, so let's move on to shadow. First of all, what are we looking at? I mean, they look like two horses fighting.
It's two unicorn statues set up. I kind of like angled it that way because I thought it kind of looked like an ink blot, like at that angle. So if you turn your head a little bit, then you can see that it's two unicorns.
Yeah, actually, I should have seen that. I mean, it's really easy to see the horns there. Same kind of thing. I think a lot of you are having issues getting shadowed images in focus because, again, I'm looking at whatever the table or wall or whatever that they're projected onto, and it's not sharp either. So I'm not sure, this is really probably an image that needs to be manually focused rather than letting the camera try, because there is a contrast edge there, and that's what the camera looks for in order to focus on, is a contrast edge. But if it's out of focus, to start with, then it's not as defined as it needs to be for the autofocus to pick up on. Also, the fact that it's not in the center, which is, where the camera is going to look initially, might have caused a little bit of that issue too. There's sometimes a little more drama by having a shadow out of focus, but I don't think you would have lost any of that by having it in. The other thing that I'm seeing, I wish I like the shadow of the figures, but what's bothering me is that dark bar at the bottom and even the right side of the image, which just is showing me stuff down here in the corner that is kind of keeping me away from the shadow. Like I said, when you look at an image, if there's anything that is not your subject that's forcing your eye to go to it, then somehow, in some way, it should have been eliminated. Logistically, how would you have positioned these to get a shadow without having that? I don't know. Not been there, I don't know what difficulties you were working up against. But I think that's probably what I think if this image didn't have those distractions, it was more sharply in focused, I think it would really be. I like the angle that you gave it. I like the fact that it's we're not straight up and down. It's got some diagonal to it. And the two things, obviously it's kind of cool. These are those little Freudian things where when you look at it, do you see the shadow of the unicorns or do you see the shadow of the light part that is between? Because if you kind of refocus your eyes, you can see a completely different shape on the inside. It almost looks like, I don't know. It almost looks like, it looks like a whole bunch of different things. It looks like the shape of an alien little girl with with their hair, the little flips on the hair or something from the back side or something. There's all sorts of things you can come up with, but I do like shadows like this. I like when people create these things, and sometimes you see what they are, and sometimes you see something else. But I think those things, if I could give you any advice at all, would be definitely bring it back and more in focus, and do what you can to eliminate the distractions. The bar on the bottom could have just simply been a crop, but you still would have had that stuff on the right to deal with. So I'm not sure how, based
Yeah,
on.
the stuff on the right was the statue. Like, I could not get the statue like too far away, or it would just be like unrecognizable. And I don't know why, because the statues aren't that small.
Yeah, again, without seeing the whole setup, and your light source probably is not as sharply defined as it might need to be to really create sharp shadows too. That could be another issue. There's a distance. It's not only the type of light source. We talked before about hard light sources as opposed to softer light sources. This really requires a hard light source, like a bare light bulb, but there's also a distance issue. Again, light source, subject, and background that needs to be there in order to create a really sharply defined shadow. So, a couple of things. Like I said, it's one of the things that sucks about having to do all of this remotely. If we had been able to go and have a class where we could set this up and play with it a little bit, all of those issues can be solved pretty easily. But we're doing guesswork here. Well, maybe it was this, and maybe it was that. But I do still like this. Between the two, I don't know. I think I probably like it a little better than the silhouettes, even the cropped version of it. I just think it's a little more interesting overall. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we'll take that one in. And we're going to move to Chris. So Chris also went with trees and sunset, but what's missing in this picture? Anybody want to comment? And by missing, I mean in a good way.
Telephone lines?
Yeah, no telephone lines. It's just and so he's created negative space here compositionally by keeping that tree off to one side, and then room for the viewer to move off of that onto the right. Chris, the only thing that for me, and this is a personal thing, the only thing I would have done differently is I would have probably just cloned out those light sources at the bottom of the image to go for a complete silhouette rather than have little things like that in there. But again, time of day, exposure, dead on to get this the way it is. And I think an image like this is way better on a cloudless day like this one was than a sunset that actually has a lot of clouds and things in, because it really sets that tree off a little bit more. But I do love the composition. I wouldn't change a thing on that. I think just those little light points at the bottom, and that's it. I think then you really have a winner there. So then we move into shadow. So this is kind of a little similar to a few images I think that we looked at last week, and talked about a couple of things. When you have you can shoot people with hard light sources like this. You just need to make sure that their face, now her face is turned towards the light. The only negative thing, the only drawback to this is the fact that her eyes are on camera, rather than if the face had been turned a little bit further. Do you see how, I don't know if I can make this a little more apparent to you. Let me see if I can zoom this down. Are you guys seeing the little zoom window as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at her eyes. So not only do we have these funky little shadows from the eyelids that are sort of covering up the eyes, but especially her left eye, which is on the right side, because there's no light hitting it directly, it's a little bit dead. We only see a little bit of that, the eye on the left side of the image, her right. If her face had been turned and raised a little bit more towards the light, man, her eyes would just have sparkled. That's my only negative comment about this. I like everything else that you did. So this would have been a great shot even without the diagonal shadow on the left, but I think that adds a little something to it. It kind of frames her in a little more. So, yeah, I mean, there are some minor little things that I can talk about as far as working with people and posing and things like that. But overall, I think literally had her face just been turned to the light and raised chin a little bit more, then I think I would have had nothing negative to say really about this at all. I do like shooting people against brick walls. I do like shooting people in with hard light sources. I think you were like literally like 95% there, and that's the only drawback that I see are those shadows off of her eyes and the fact that there's no light in the eye. Even the processing kind of works on this, where it's a little more subdued, a little more muted. I'm guessing that her outfit probably is a little more colorful than that in person. Am I right?
No, it was like, I'm not sure. It was definitely gray. That's definitely a gray.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like super vibrant. I'd say it was like, I don't know, tealish up, like it's definitely muted though. I definitely like desaturated the image a little bit and kind of, I'd say just like smoothed out the colors. It wasn't as vibrant. Like that brick wall, especially on the right side, was really red. I darkened that. Yeah, like you said, it's just muted pretty much.
But still, I think what stands out, and this is again why I think that little turn would have been so beneficial. Her lips and her eyes are really the most colorful things in the image, and if those two things had played against each other even a little more, I really think this would have been an awesome image. I even like the shadow created by her leg being up against the wall, because again, she kind of is making a number 4 here. But you create those diagonal shadows that mirror the diagonals in the body, and mirrors the line of her leg is the same as the line of that shadow. What was it that created that diagonal shadow on the wall?
That I'm sure you know where this is. It's in the tunnel at the Capitol.
Oh yeah, on the side. Yeah, going back to the stage door.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go back there a lot. Well, to shoot the bridge for one thing, because there was a good angle for the bridge back there. But man, for years and years. But this goes back to literally before any of you guys were born. I used to shoot all of the stage shows. Not so much like the specialty shows that came through, but like every Saturday night, they had 2 performances of the Jamboree, and I would go back that tunnel to the stage door and knock on the stage door, and the security guard would let me in, and we'd go back, and my ex-wife and I would go back and shoot these shows mostly from backstage. I would occasionally go out and shoot from the audience perspective, but I really liked shooting backstage and side stage. And I'd get to go into the dressing rooms and do little handshake pictures with the local people who wanted pictures of themselves with celebrities and whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of memories for me in that little tunnel. I've been back that way a whole lot. I think it's cool back in there when they have a huge show like a circus or something, and man, the stuff they cram back in there, and the trucks and all the equipment and everything. But it is kind of a cool little because the sun sets, over the river typically. Was this done recently?
I think I did this in August.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the angle of the sun has shifted now. And if you're looking from the end of that tunnel out to the river, the sun earlier in the year sets a little bit to the right. And now, I was just down there last weekend, it's actually setting off to the left. So you would not have gotten this shadow from that tunnel, no matter probably how far you went down to the end. It's just it blew my mind how much of a difference there is in time of year for where the sun is. So this whole tunnel was probably in shadow at that point, at that time of day, later in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So which of the 2 do you like the best?
I like the silhouette.
I do like both of them, though. I will tell you, take that take the criticisms and the comments with a grain of salt because they're really minor. And shooting with people, which I don't think a lot of you have a lot of experience at, is a really tough thing. It's a really tough thing to make people look good. Sometimes you have portraits of people and they don't look good and you really don't know why, right? And everybody says, oh, I hate the way I look in pictures. Well, it's because most pictures are snapshots and they're not really, they kind of catch us off guard and things like that. It's a really tough thing to do. In your case, I think really just the one little tweak would be all it would take.
Yeah,
I do.
That's definitely something that bothered me coming into this. I definitely recognized it, and I haven't really done too much people like photography. So yeah, definitely need to like improve on that.
So when I first started playing with photography, I mean, way back in the, wow, it would have been like late 70s, early 80s. I never wanted to shoot people. Like I used it as an escape to get away from people. Actually, I wanted to do products. I always thought that was what I wanted to do, was products. And then, I started shooting, in a little studio environment that I created, just little, whatever product I could find to put on a table or on a white seamless and shoot it and see how I could make it look interesting. And then from there, I went to like landscapes, and then I knew people who had show cars and motorcycles and things like that. And they're like, hey, can you do some pictures of my car? And from there, I remember the first time somebody said, hey, my parents are having a 40th anniversary party. Would you mind coming and taking some pictures of that? And I'm like, well, wow, I don't know if I know what I'm doing there, but they offered to pay me. So I went, and it was like, well, this was kind of easy, actually. All I had to do, and they were horrible. I mean, without a doubt, they were horrible. I look back, I still have those pictures. They were literally horrible, but I got paid for them. And I thought, well, these little products and landscapes and cars and motorcycles, for the most part, aren't going to pay me. So let's start working with things that'll pay me. And I went through, I bet I spent 20 years really actively studying portrait photography and I was just talking to somebody over the weekend about this. This is what's missing today, I think, in photographic education, is that I was able to learn, portrait photography, and once the digital revolution came along, editing and things like that, from people who literally were the rock stars in the industry. Like I learned retouching from people who were, had been hired to retouch like Elizabeth Taylor or to do covers of Vogue magazine and things like that. I studied with Ken Marcus, who was, for years, he was the lead photographer for Playboy. I had access to all of these people through photography associations that have sort of dried up and gone away. And so it's really sad that you might still find access to certain people, but it's generally through YouTube. It's not a one-on-one. And it was so cool to meet these people and work with them like for a day or even a week, and then sit down and have lunch and dinner with them and pick their brain a little bit. And that was really cool because, you would, the thing was always like, hey, how about outside of class time, take a look at some of my pictures and tell me what you think. And some of them were probably a little over nice, like they didn't want to really point out the flaws. And some were really kind of brutal about it. But it was the brutal ones that I think I learned the most from. They would point out every little flaw and every little thing that I didn't see. And it's just over and over and over again until I got to the point where I that was in my brain as I'm pushing the button, to not let the nose break the plane of the face, for example. So if you're looking at me, this is just one of 1,000 rules that there are. So, if I'm looking straight on at the camera, I've got full face. If I go this way, I'm in profile. But what you never want to do is bring the face to the point where you see the far cheek, and there's some space between the end of the nose and the far cheek. There's that little area right there. The nose you should either be in profile or you should be in 3/4 or full face. But that little, you know, where the nose just either sticks just beyond the edge of the face or just inside it, that's just generally considered a no-no. It's not a flattering look to the face. So there are 1,000 little things that people have pointed out to me over the years that I never would have known. I never would have thought of these things. I listened to endless competitions, and an image come up in competition, portrait images, and a judge take an image that when I looked at it at first, I thought, wow, that's a great image. And they would just rip it to pieces. And I'm like, they're right. You know, I never saw it, but they are right. They would have, you know, an image like this, they would have definitely picked up on the head tilt. They probably would have talked a little bit about her hand being a little too flat, and, you know, that little finger being separated a little bit more, all these little things. And even looking into one of the other things is that the back of a hand, looking into knuckles, is not generally considered. Now, it's really tough in an image like this not to do that if you're going to, you know, use that against the wall. But typically you want to look at not only the side of the hand, which is a little more elegant, but a little more, you know, positioned like this, as opposed to this. You know, you get a little more, especially on women, you know, you get this little thing like that, which is considered very elegant. But if you go too far this way or too far this way, then you're looking at hard surfaces. And yeah, little things like that, they'll just pick apart. And I do have some cool portrait images to show you after we finish this section. And yeah, please don't think I'm tearing it apart, because I'm not. I think for somebody,
that's perfectly fine.
For somebody who does not have a lot of experience shooting people, this is a pretty good effort. Like overall, very, very good effort. But yeah, it is definitely one of the hardest things to do. I think I probably moved into pets before I moved into people. That was probably my intermediate. And pets can be their own challenge for sure. But we'll talk a little bit about that later. So did I move that sunset in? Yes, I did. Okay. All right, so good job as always, Chris. We're going to move to Taylor. And so I'm going to, first of all, this image, I don't know why, but when I first saw this, I really, really like this image. I mean, I do know why, but, you know, I can point out some specific things about that I like about it. But again, it's a very simple image. I think it's the perspective that we have here. The little bit of a wide angle look in very close up to a subject. Now here we have a very hard light source and a very sharply defined shadow. And I can look at this and say, boy, would I rather see this without the subject that's casting in shadow or with it? And I think I'd love it either way. I mean, this is like a little, I'm guessing like a macrame kind of almost like a dream catcher. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I took it by myself, and I wish I would have had somebody like holding the light, because it was really awkward, but
well, it worked. I mean, I can't look at what you did and give you any changes that I would have made to it. I mean, this as far as an exercise in creating a shadow, this is a really, really good one. There are really no distractions. There's a little minor seam in the wall back there, but it's so minor that it's not even worth mentioning. I think I do like the fact that I see the hanger as well, because there's color in that and there's no color in the shadow, and I like the way that plays against each other. If you eliminate the hanger and just use the shadow, now you've got that monochromatic look that we talked about last week as far as color. But either way, I mean, it works either way. It was a really cool subject for you to use. What was it that, I mean, did you just look at it and think, wow, I bet I could create some cool shadows? Or had you seen this thing cast shadows before that you thought were interesting?
I just was hoping it would be cool. I'd never seen it. I just thought it would be interesting.
Almost looks like a spider web, the way it plays out. And it's just, again, I just like, because of the angle of the light source, the way that it has exaggerated that shadow, I just think it's really cool. So that one I'm really impressed with. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
So this one, you have to explain to me, there's got to be a reason that you cropped it the way you did.
Yeah. The other half of her wasn't really a silhouette, so when you could
Ah.
see like her red dress on the other side, so I just wanted to crop that out.
Okay. So interestingly enough, when you see an image like this and you don't know that, you would assume that there's some creative reason for doing it, and that's okay. That's a good thing. I was kind of hoping there was. I wanted to know what it was, but I do appreciate the fact that you saw something that was a distraction, that was not what you were trying to photograph, and found an easy way to fix it. I like the bend in the road. This is another thing, guys, when you're shooting people like this or anything that is including a piece of a road, there are very few times where a straight road, it can be effective, but more often than not, you want to find these little curves and bends in the road because they're visually leading us somewhere. And so this is effective in that regard. Even though the fact that the back half of it is in shadow, I can still see that road bends and kind of goes back the other way. So in your mind, you play that story out of, well, this person's walking down the road and you know where they're going to go. I think and again, this would have been something you would have to have recognized at the time you shot it, I think, and not after the fact. I think if this had split her really down the center, like if that right edge had come right down the center of her head, I think I would have found it even more interesting as to why we just had half of her. But there's a little mystery to it, so that's a good thing. I don't mind that at all. I do like the road. I do like the fact that you again position the light. So even though the light source is above her, it's still in that line straight through, and it's why you were able to create the silhouette that you did. So great job on both of these, but I'm telling you, this is the one that really, I don't know if you disagree or not, but this is the one that I really thought was your better image.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just happen to think there's when we come back, we're going to take a little break here in a minute. It just reminded me of a couple of road images that I'll try to pull up and see if they're applicable to this. Just some things to point out as far as roads are concerned. But yeah, this image is just, for shadow, again, for playing with shadow, for the exercise we were doing, couldn't have picked a better one. So good job. All right, Eva. So the one thing I said, if you remember, when we talked about doing this exercise is, I don't want to see just a shadow on the ground. But in this case, we don't just have a shadow on the ground. We have two shadows on the ground, and they kind of balance each other. Is that you, by the way?
No, that's me.
That's you? Okay. So I have to applaud the ability to look at what you had in front of you and recognize that you had compositionally had some balance there. If this has just been your shadow, I think I would have been like, come on, you can do better than that. But I like the fact that we had, it's recognizable. It's a lamppost, obviously, but we've got, obviously a similar angle in the shadows. We've got the balance is you're not at equal heights, which is what does create that balance and creates that diagonal between the two of you. Again, not the most dynamic image in the world, not going to win prizes anywhere, but I can appreciate what you were thinking and how your mind was working on this, and taking it just a step further than a simple shadow on the ground. So I give you credit for that. Then your silhouette, again, like a couple of people have already done, the backlit trees. Again, hey, no power lines, yay, thank you. I love the gradation in this. Pretty much the other two had a very similar, obviously the sunset at the bottom going to a deep blue at the top. This one has a little bit of a different feel Again, I think I might have even bumped those colors and saturated them even more, but I still like the fact that I like the fact that you really filled the frame with the trees. I liked what Chris did with his in creating the negative space. In this case, I like the fact that we really have filled the frame, even to the point where I might have considered cropping the top of it so we didn't even see the tops of the trees. I don't know if I would like that. Just off the top of my head, I think the tight crop and the claustrophobic feel that this has is a little different and a little unique. So I kind of like that. But I guess if we'd cropped it down, then I would have lost that a little more of that transition to a deep blue at the top. So maybe that wouldn't have been a good idea. I do like the fact that you don't have an overabundance of negative foreground space. You know, that looks pretty good at the bottom. Could have come up maybe a little bit, but it's not a big issue. I think that worked out pretty well. Between the two, obviously, I think this is your better image as far as impact is concerned. This one maybe has a little more compositionally to it, but I don't know. What do you think?
I like the trees. Silhouette.
Trees it is. And again, so carrying over the color theory thing that we worked on, you know, again, we have warm balanced against cool, and that's always a good thing. So I like the fact that you guys are thinking along those lines. So Alana's not here, but she has a couple of pretty cool images too. This one is actually my favorite. That's her original, and that's the edited one. Let's just take a look. I like what she did with it. It's called Christmas with Gumby and Pokey. So again, a little bit of humor that I kind of appreciate. And color-wise, so it's a beautiful image for color. It's a great silhouette. You know, I think everything she did right here. I even like the positioning of, you know, the star pattern. You know, it looks like Gumby's going to go put the star on the top of the tree. And then there's this star pattern that's created on the wall right at the intersection of where that star is in his hands. To me, this is a really good dynamic image. It's recognizable for what it is. It's very colorful. It's got a little bit of humor to it. Compositionally, there's nothing that I would change on this. So I just think this is a really, really cool image. So her original image here is called Shadow of Doubt. And I don't know if she intentionally flipped it upside down. I'm guessing she did, since that's the way it came in. I don't really, okay, so now I think I get a little bit more about what was going on here. So the little figure has what looks like a bloody knife in his hand, and Shadow of Doubt being a pun, a play on words. You know, did he actually kill this creature, or is it just circumstantial evidence? I think that's actually pretty funny. I'm not sure why the flip, if I have that right, or if it is supposed to be, whoops, that way. Probably not. I'm guessing that she just wanted to really turn the image on its head for some reason. So it's kind of funny. I get a kick out of that. This is the original, called Transparent Love. That's the, so again, now we have, again, a very sharply defined shadow. We have a recognizable subject. If you look at the original, it's, you know, it's a shadow. It's, you know, she could have turned this in and satisfied the requirements of everything. But a couple of steps that she took which really improved this, one would be to crop out the concrete at the bottom and just go with the door. And then it's a little less recognizable as a garage door. This is, you know, obviously what that looks like. And here, this could have been an interior wall. It would have been a little more difficult to say for sure what it was. The vignette around it, even though it's a little strong, a little, you know, the edges are a little too defined for my taste, it definitely draws your attention to the center of the image and to the subject. So the choices she made here are really good, really well done. It is a simple image, but it's executed really well. And then finally, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I'm sure there's more to that title than I'm aware of. But again, we have a very similar thing. This is the fourth sunset image that we've seen. Again, it's another very good one. There is more cloud cover in this image, but for some reason, I like it here. I like the fact that it's created some texture all the way up in that sky. And we've definitely gone from, the very warm, catching this right as the sun's dipping below the horizon, and then all of that color transitioning into blue with some mixture because of the clouds all the way up. This is a really good silhouette. This is, in fact, this would have been my favorite image of hers had it not been for this one. I think that one for me is, it just shows a level of creativity. And so does this, honestly, but for the subject matter, for me, this is definitely the one that jumped out for me. All right, so let's open these up. We have 8 images. And I'm going to close this and try to get you guys up where I can see you all here. If your camera's not on, how about flipping it on long enough to do this for me? As we're going to get thumbs up on everybody.
My photos weren't in there.
I did not. Did you send them through Sakai?
Yeah, they're in the Dropbox.
I checked there this afternoon, but I didn't see them. Let me take a real quick look. Actually, let me look on this computer. That way we don't have to transfer if they're there. Thanks for telling me that, though. 285, fall 20, Dropbox. They're in the middle. There's three things in there, and I looked at the top one, which had a date of October 27th. For whatever reason, they're not sorted by date, and that's why I missed it. So they are here. So let me get these downloaded, and we'll add yours to the mix as well. Should only take a second. Okay, I'm going to pull this down and get into that folder. Okay. Now we should be able to see them. All right, so obviously I'm seeing these for the first time. So we've got silhouette of a pumpkin. Tell me why, is there a reason for the laptop in the image? I'm just curious, because I'm looking at this thinking that it might have been a little more dramatic with just the pumpkin.
I was going to cut the laptop out, but then I kind of liked how the light was shining off of it, kind of reflecting.
I mean, I do like that. I think if as an image by itself, that low oblique warm light coming across the keys and the side of that, I think would have been kind of cool. But in this case, our subject really is the pumpkin.
Yeah.
And that creates, like, my mind wants to say why. Like, why is it there? What is it contributing to this picture of the pumpkin? I think that's probably, my biggest thing. I'm surprised too, because your light source is definitely right behind that pumpkin. I think maybe the exposure. Okay. So there's your finished one of that. I didn't see. That was a CR2 we were looking at. So you cropped it in a little bit. Yeah, there was some distraction and some dead space on the right. I'm a little surprised that we're not getting a little more form out of the pumpkin, but I do see the edges all the way around. So that's really not too much of an issue. So then the other one, this is the original for shadow and then the cropped version. I actually think I might like the original as far as the shadows are concerned better. I love what it's doing in the folds of that material. I like the color balance that you've got on this. The fact that the light source is actually included sometimes can be a little more effective. Taking it into this, we have a better subject and just focusing on that subject. But on this one, I really have that interplay of light and shadow on here that I kind of like. Yeah. Honestly, David, I think that raw file is my favorite of all the images that you submitted.
All right.
I think that's kind of cool, actually. All I would have done to this would have been maybe crop it just enough to straighten it a little bit because it's leaning just slightly to the left. But other than that, I like the way the light's hitting some of the other objects in the back. But mostly it's the folds of that material in front, the shadow that's cast by the light itself. So it's an interesting idea to use a light as, but not using it as the light source, using it as the subject. So it's kind of a little play on things there. But yeah, I like this one. I'm going to use your raw file on that. And let me make sure that I have it listed here. Let's see, where are you? Yep, there you are. So we'll make sure you get credit for that. All right, now let's go back and we should have 9 images instead of 8. Actually, let me go this way. There we go. All right, so I think we lost, okay, I was gonna say, I think we lost Jacob, he's there. All right, so let's start from the upper left, Gumby image. Okay, let's go to the shadow puppets, the unicorns, first sunset, Sasquatch, Christmas lights, the lantern. Oh, sorry, I had both lanterns in there. We should have only had the one. And then the shadow on the wall here. And then our last silhouette, or tree silhouette. So our winner is the Dreamcatcher. Taylor, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get that point recorded. I am also I think I gotta give a point to the Gumby picture. There's something about that it was really creatively done, really cool idea, and I just love the color of the image too. There's a whole lot about that one, so I'm just gonna throw 1 extra point here, and that's Alana's, I believe. Okay. All right, so we're good with that. So it is 5:15. Give me a couple of extra minutes because there's a few images I want to find. So let's go till 5:30. When we come back, we should be able to run through the images in about a half an hour that I want you to see, and then hopefully break up a little early. But let's go till 5:15, and we'll see you back then. I'm going to stop this share. And yeah, just mute. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes, guys. All right, we'll roll here in a second. So I wasn't able to find the exact pictures I was looking for. They were of we were talking about the road leading away. There was a runner that I photographed in the desert with a really cool winding road behind her that sort of made it look like she had just run down the whole road. And I can't find that, but I did find a couple that were similar. We'll take a look at those here. So this is just, sort of a scenic shot of it, in and of itself. But the road is really the subject here. And, so obviously it kind of winds through the foreground of this landscape, but then you can actually see another piece of it back off to the left, which kind of tells you that it really snakes through this valley pretty extensively. And I think I was actually waiting on someone to change clothes while we were getting ready to shoot and just happened to photograph this. The other thing that makes this a little more interesting, so again, color. So we've got the warm foreground, we've got the cool background, the two opposites playing against each other. The receding mountains get hazier and hazier as it goes back, and that's a visual clue about distance, which I don't know, just is a little interesting, I think. The point of focus here is not the foreground. It's about mid-ground, about here in the middle of the image. So the foreground is allowed to go out of focus a little bit. And then there's a little bit of detail in the clouds, not a ton. So this is the one with a subject. I think it's actually the same piece of road. And even though we're using it as kind of a symmetrical leading line thing coming in from, not only left and right, but down the center of the road, you still see the out of focus road in the background that snakes off and goes around in a corner. This could have been effective if it had been a straight road as well, but I think this adds a little something to it to have that little bend. This one is a little more of a straight road, but it's a very low angle. This was a tough shot because she almost was a silhouette in the original image, because you can see that she's completely backlit, very hard sunlight early in the morning as it came up in the desert, and it was tough to bring that detail back in. But again, just using roads in multiple different ways as a subject and as a background element. So those were the only ones I could find. They weren't the ones I was looking for, but give us a little bit of a look anyway. So the rest of these images, what we're going to look at, and I've got them kind of separated into categories. The portrait stuff is going to be first. There's some really unique stuff here. These are, for the most part, they are relatively recent images. There's the whole first series here is done by a photographer named Eric Kaparis. He's a member of our international. Well, he lives in the States, but he's Asian, and his work is just phenomenally different. This is a little more environmental. I don't normally see him work in natural light situations. This is one of the more unusual ones, but he still obviously has his own flair. As we go, I'm going to go back over here. We'll go down. So these, now you'll see a couple of his, I believe this is his as well, studio images. He's big into body painting, very costumey. Again, playing with the color harmonies. The warms and the cools, the blues and the golds here played against each other. And again, so if you notice that because of where the light source is, Chris, this is one for you to watch. The faces, the chin's turned up so that the eyes are fully lit. You see the highlight in the bottom of her eye from that light source, which is a relatively hard light source for a shot like this. But that's important. That highlight in the eye is really important to give life to an image. This is one of my favorite ones of his. Just, I mean, impeccably done with the body paint, with the color harmony, the neutrals and the golds, which is an unusual combination. And then the lighting on it is just flawless. another one of his that is, he's, like I said, big into body paint, into body jewelry, things like that. But the lighting is what makes this shot. Of course, the composition is very unique as well. Looks like, almost like this person is struggling to stay above whatever, water, fog, whatever. This is another one of his. This was actually on the cover of our magazine at one point. So very, very difficult to photograph blacks and whites in whatever the subject is, but those things that are black, things that are white, and maintain the level of detail that is throughout that. I wish I could show you this larger, because there's so much detail, like in this guy's beard and his hair and the back of his hat, just impeccably done. And then, of course, the whole yin and yang with the light and the dark is really cool as well. It's another one. I'm not sure if this is his or not. It possibly is, but I just thought it was an interesting portrait. Again, rim lit, the face lit very differently than the body, and then that color harmony. It's an overall bluish monochrome, but with the skin tones in there that are balancing against that. One of the few wedding images that I found, and again, one of the telltale things about an image, if you want to know if you have a problem with your image, if people are seeing things that you don't really want them to see, there's two ways to do it. One is to flip an image upside down, and the other is to squint at it. And if you squint at an image and something pops out at you that is not your subject, or is not where you want the viewer's eye to go, then you have a distraction that needs to be dealt with. In this case, when you do that, you cannot help but see the bride and groom. I mean, your eye goes right there, because everything else, even though there's detail throughout, you can see in the shadows all the way to the back of this, it's been burned down to the point, darkened down to the point where you just literally can't help but see the couple. Another great portrait image. This was actually, let's see, so Nashville, this would have been displayed last year. So this is about a year old. This is a loan collection image. So the way the competition works is they get 5,000 or 6,000 images that are entered in competition every year from all over the world. We have members in 55 countries. And out of those 5,000 or 6,000, they may end up with somewhere around 40 to 50% will be considered merit images, meaning that they've reached the benchmark, they are worthy of being displayed at the convention. And then of that, which is, like I said, 40 or 50% of the total, they will pick maybe another 500, 600, 700, 800 or whatever out of those that are the best of the best. And they are entered into what's currently called the loan collection. That name's about to change. So these are the best of the best. So they're judged once as for the benchmark of a merit, and then all of those are judged again for loan collection. So it's a very striking black and white. A lot of things going on here. Very symmetrical composition, the direct eye contact, the incredible tone and detail all the way throughout in this gentleman's hat and clothing, as well as his skin and face. Just technically almost flawless. This is an interesting one. This is not even, I don't think this was entered in competition because it's not formatted for competition, but I just thought it was interesting. Very good color harmony again between the background, the model, the clothing. The lighting is very soft, but again, her face is turned into it. You can see a little shadow on her left cheek, right side of the image. So you know where the light source is. And even though her eyes are on camera, the face and chin is still turned in that direction. But really great color harmony on that one. This is a really cool portrait. Very gritty. These are images that are actually photographed in the studio and then composited with, a background that's created. So in order to enter this in a portrait category, you have to have photographed all of the elements. So this photographer would have shot the lightning, would have shot the background, all of that in addition to the subject. But again, look at the composition and the cropping on this and how unusual it is. Of cropping the top of the head off, keeping him way over to the right side of the image. But the left side, you get drawn in from there, and everything leads you over to that subject, and he really stands out. When you're talking about high key, this is really high key, to the point where we almost lose detail in parts of the subject, but we see everything we need to see. So this is a really well done portrait too. So these are a couple loan collection images from this year, and they may appear to be very simple at first, and they are simple, but they're just impeccably done. Between working with the color harmony, not just in the subject and the clothing, but even in the background and the matting that's surrounding it, everything just works. And again, you can see the light source is soft, but you definitely see a highlight side and a shadow side to the face. There's a shadow cast by the nose. You can see the highlight in the eyes, so you know that the light source is above and to one side. Even the pose, the hands, look, we were talking about hands a little while ago. Look how elegantly the hands are done in the side of the hand that you're looking at. Even though you see her knuckles on the one hand, the hand is still posed the way it needs to be in order to look a little more elegant. So this is, I think, there's another one by the same woman. And again, the hands, even though we're looking in, you can see that she's actually subdued the knuckles. She probably retouched them a little bit. The pose was kind of, she could have turned the hands probably a little bit more and eliminated some of that, but she actually went in and just toned down the harshness of the knuckles. But these faces are very captivating, very, very cool portraits. This is actually a high school senior, believe it or not. All high school seniors have gotten very cool again in recent years with doing all sorts of really high-end work. I think the outfit here, the costume, kind of works really cool with the violin. It's another high school senior. A lot of negative space. Again, look at how the face is lit. The lighting's coming from the right-hand side. You can see the shadows that are cast by his legs and feet, keeping light on the face, but it's a very, very moody image. And then the addition of the hat on top of that guitar just kind of creates, but look at the composition. Look at the angles, the triangles, the diagonals, everything that's created there. I know it's a small image, but, and then the tone, that it's essentially a black and white, but it's a toned image. And, monochromatic. It's just, in color, I don't know that this would have had the same impact. Now, this little section is on, this is the artist section. This is taking photographs of different elements and combining them together into something completely different. So on the right-hand side, you can see the photos that were used to create the concept on the left-hand side. So this guy and the bracket and the netting as well was photographed on green screen to make it a little easier to separate and pull off something like this. There's a few of these. This one's pretty cool. It's called "Are You the Loch Ness Monster?" And again, on the bottom, you see all of the elements that were used. This little kid was actually photographed just sitting on a bench, and then all of the little things that were added and combined together to create this. So this is a pretty good example of having a concept in mind. This isn't something you just sit down and start playing with. Obviously, you need to have this idea in your head before you even start, and then either photograph or find images that are going to work for you. In the artist category, you do not have to have photographed all of the elements yourself, but clearly they did the child. And even look how the lighting has been changed on the child's face in the final image compared to down here, which is the original. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. So he's clearly kind of lit from above so that his hand and the light doesn't cast a shadow on him. And that's been changed in the final here because a light source was added into the lantern. So the lighting had to be changed on his face to make it look like that was a little more natural. Pretty good job all the way around. This one's called We Will Miss You. It's kind of a little tear-jerking image. This woman had shot these giraffes in a zoo, and then had all the other elements that she pulled together to, make it look like this baby giraffe's being shipped off to the circus or something. But the lighting, if you again look at the lighting, very impeccably done. This is really cool. I don't know whose this is. Well, John Ellis is the name, the copyright on it, but it's a really cool concept. I've seen this location a number of times before, but I've never seen it treated this way and done in kind of a whimsical way. Just very creative, very creatively done. This section is more about nature, landscape, and this is actual photography, not enhanced artistically, although the color may have been enhanced here a bit as well. But wow, look at the composition, the separation of those boats, like they don't intersect with each other. They're all on their own. The light sources illuminating the drivers of these boats, the color harmony, everything about this is just extremely well done. Again, when you're talking about landscapes, you're talking about being in the right place at the right time, and then doing the processing in a way that really brings out all that detail, all that color. When I look at this, I kind of envision it without that teal blue sky back there, and I think it might have been, maybe it would have been a little more effective without that. But then again, maybe, because there's really no other color in the image that balances against that. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the opposites being done that way is, I don't know. What do you guys think? You think you would like it better if the sky was continuous tone like it is above these rocks, or do you like the teal? Anybody have a comment on that? Nobody cares one way or the other.
I really like that picture. I think it's I think the teal, I think the teal kind of contrasts the orange a little bit, but I think I'd like it either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning the same way. I think because I do like this. And as I look not at the larger image, but as I look at the thumbnail on the left, and I just see a little hint of that there kind of coming out, it's almost, I don't know. I like it on the thumbnail really well. So yeah, I think you're right. I think I'd like it either way. But these are just really cool spots and a perfect time of day to shoot something like this. This is the kind of stuff that I like. Now, I do a lot of portraits in locations like this, so I'll have a subject there. And my friends who are all landscape photographers, they're all like, man, that would have been a great image if somebody hadn't photobombed it. They like to see the clean landscape, and I like to see a person in front of it somehow. This is an interesting one. So I've seen, you guys have done some flower images, but doing a flower in black and white and then the title being 50 Shades of Daisy, it's just a really creative concept and an idea. The detail is phenomenal. The focus on this flower is sharp pretty much all the way throughout. Just extremely well done. Also, notice how the presentation is done on a lot of these images. Most of them are bordered with a single or a double stroke line, but it's not overpowering. They're done in a way that complements the image and complements the composition, but still lets the image sort of stand on its own. Very rarely will you see an image like this entered in a competition that does not have a border of that type around it somehow, because it does enhance it. This was actually taken from a website, so if this had been entered in a competition, I guarantee you it would have had a treatment like this or like this. Another flower image by the same guy, again, concentrating on small details. And again, look at the matting and the stroke line and how he's pulled colors out of the image to complement that. That's not an angle or a magnification that a lot of people would think to do, but the diagonals that are in here really create a strong image. Another great landscape. Almost makes this look like it's lit by moonlight rather than sunlight. but I guarantee you it is sunlight, and it's just, you know, the processing and the treatment to get it to look like this. But compositionally, you know, rule of thirds being used on this, leading in from the left so that we read left to right. Lots of little things. I love the stroke line, which is in the same gray tones, but it's subdued just enough that it's not brighter. You know, the brightest thing in the image is the face of this bluff right here, and that's how you want that to be. Again, composition, cropping. There's nothing, if you can envision this, the original image with a lot of sky above it, there's really nothing up there that we need to see that we're not already seeing. So why not crop it down and just show what it is you want to show? And doing a landscape with a white mat like this is sometimes a risky move, but it really works in this case because it's sort of a high key image overall. Getting into some color, you know, again, that trail, that road that's leading off, even though it doesn't really snake around, the tire tracks do. They're not straight back. The trees are kind of leaning a little bit towards the center, mostly right to left to create a little bit of diagonal. But man, the color in this is just superb. This is a friend of mine who's an incredible artist. And again, this is a scene that, you know, a lot of people might see but not recognize the potential in it. Look at the pastel tones in that sky and how well that's been maintained and the detail that's there. And it's almost like a bubblegum colors, the blues and the peaches and the pinks and all of that. Really, really well done. And I know where I know she and her husband shoot near where they live. They live in Idaho, and they're going out some of these places they're going out to have 3 feet of snow and it's 25 below zero, and I'm like, you go, girl. Better you than me. That's not where I want to be. I love the images, but I'm not going to go out there to create these. Another one of hers. So what was done on this image? Anybody have an idea what was done on this to make this well, what things, because there are several things, what can anybody see in this image that really makes this kind of sing? What was done either technically or aesthetically or processing or whatever? Anybody see anything that was done well here?
It might be a longer shutter speed because the water looks kind of
Yeah, that's the first thing that I notice. And I think it's a very long, I would guess that this is several seconds, 4 or 5 seconds at least, maybe even more. So clearly it's shot on a tripod because everything is sharp except for that water. But yeah, it makes angel hair out of it when you do that. It just, you know, really creates a lot of motion. Compositionally, it's almost symmetrical. Just, you know, detail, the vignetting, which is very subtle at the bottom, but keeps your eye on the waterfall and above instead of down there in the water. A lot of cool little things were done here. This is also Sherry's. And again, great job of recognizing, again, processing plays a big part here, but in recognizing that this tree is kind of standing out from the rest and then processing it in a way to make that accentuate even more, but without losing any detail in the darker trees. It's another one of hers. So the color harmony in this, not just in the image, but look how it's been carried out in the matting around as well. It's done in like a 3-dimensional looking mat, but clearly it's a digital mat. But this is a very harmonious image, and that's done intentionally to draw colors out of the image into the matting. And this was a Loan Collection image this year. So one of the best images of the year. Really cool. This was done by a guy named Kevin Dooley, who photographs a lot in Africa. And I think not just in the processing of this image, but in recognizing what he had here. You know, the zebras are very monochromatic, black and white, and pretty much the sky was treated the same way to sort of mirror that from the upper part of the image to the lower part. Small image here, I know, but I love this. It's called Steps to Dawn. Again, slow shutter speed, not as slow as the other one, but you can see a lot of movement in that water swirling around those rocks. The sunrise or sunset, whatever it is, not only creates drama and great color harmony back there, but it rim lights those rocks. Just beautiful image. This is Sherry's husband, Dennis. Promise of Tomorrow is the title. Just he does some great landscapes. This is actually, I wouldn't say this is one of his best, but it's a pretty decent image. And then I think we have some animals here at the end. This is probably one of Kevin's as well. I don't remember where I pulled this from, probably off of his Facebook page. But wow, look at the color harmony on this. Look how absolutely beautiful these animals are lit. They're backlit, but they're not silhouetted. The detail is still there, but all of this color and tone that is, I can see the logo at the bottom. It is Kevin's. Just a great image. The only thing I would complain about is I would say, wow, that deer or antelope or whatever it is in the back on the right, if that just wasn't there with the head sticking kind of out of the other one. But it is, you don't really get to pose these animals. And I think it's pretty doggone good just the way it is too. Studio shots for pets. Pets are tough. Dogs and cats are tougher than anything because cats just don't want to cooperate. But the thing with cats is that they are visual. If you want to get two things you can do to get a cat, to get a decent picture of a cat. Number one, put it up on something high, because for a short period of time, it's going to feel a little out of sorts. Like they need to really study their environment. They're not going to just jump off of something until they're sure they can. So they'll sit there usually for, a minute or two and then get their attention with something that moves, something just out of frame, a little dangling thing. I've got a couple little cat toys that I use to get their attention. They'll watch it. They might bat at it a little bit, but mostly they're just going to look at it. And once you've got everything else in place, lighting and so forth, it's a pretty simple thing. With dogs, they're auditory. Looks like they do have this dog up on a little something, but I use a squeaker, whether it's a pet, whether it's a dog by itself or a number of dogs, or whether people are in the image or what. When I have everything set the way I want it, the camera's ready to go, I hit the squeaker and the dog will almost instinctively look at the camera, the ears will perk up, and you just have to be ready to shoot right at that instant. Now, sometimes you hit a squeaker, they'll look at you and they will immediately run to you because they want to find out what that noise is, and you have to reset the whole thing and do it again. But you can usually get 3 or 4 really good shots that way before they stop reacting. Another one of Kevin's, and these are not in zoos. These are in the wild in Africa. I don't know. I hope he shot this from like the back of an SUV, or not an SUV, but a some type of bush vehicle. I can't imagine getting literally that close enough, even with a long lens, to shoot this lion without having some protection. I just wouldn't do it. Think this is hilarious. I don't know how much, obviously there's some painting done on this, but I don't know how much artwork was done, but it's a pretty neat, pretty cool image. I don't even know what these things are. Does anybody know what they are? What these animals are? Yeah, I don't either. They look like almost an ostrich head, but I don't know. This was a loan collection image. This is not the presentation version of it, but I know Marianne. I know she does primarily pets, and this is really well done. Low-toned image. Brightest spot on this image is the dog's head and face. The eyes are very bright. The detail in the coat throughout. There's just a lot of things really done well here. And then, so some of these images, this is not by my friend who does a lot of bird images. Some of which look like they're fake, they're really not. They actually have to be lit with flash from camera position, and the flash has to have sort of a focusing lens on it to really fire that thing and get some distance out of it. And then obviously shutter speed is a big thing. Very, very fast shutter speed to freeze these wings. And then if the background is natural, great time of day to shoot that. And then finally this one, again, just timing, selective focus, high shutter speed to freeze all that, color harmony, everything about this is just a really cool image. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a quick look at, you know, the face of current modern photography. Let me stop sharing this. I didn't want to start a new topic and get a new new thread going here because we don't have an assignment for next week. So I didn't want to, you know, teach something new and give you an assignment. But next week, just so you know, is probably the most important class we're going to do. It is the review of all the material. We're going to go over a lot of the stuff that's going to be on the test. I just want to prepare you guys as much as I can so that you're not hit with any surprises. I will let you know what topics we're going to look at. We'll actually look at some sample questions that are similar to ones that will be on the test, and just so you get a feel for whether you're ready for it or whether you need to bone up a little bit more. So it probably will not, since we don't have an assignment, it won't be a long class. I'm not going to speculate on how long it'll take us to go through all of this stuff. You know, just see when everybody's comfortable. But that's our class for next week. And by all means, if you can't make that, make sure that you watch the recording of it, because it's the most important one that you'll have this year to prepare you for that last one. Any questions or comments on anything, guys? Have I sufficiently bored you for today? All right, so we'll go ahead and call it here, half hour earlier, whatever. I know you're getting near the end of the semester and things are getting a little crazy for you. That's why I kind of pull back off a little bit at this point. I don't want to overload you guys too much. So hopefully next week we'll explain where we're headed and get you guys all prepared and go from there. I see I've only looked briefly, but I do see a couple of you that have signed up for the next class, the advanced class. I will tell you that because of the situation right now, we are at least going to start that class virtually as well. I really don't want to finish it that way because there's a lot of hands-on lighting stuff that we really need to go into. But right now we're looking at probably, I don't know, they're saying April before we start getting vaccines in the general public's hands. And of course, it'll depend on the numbers. Right now, the numbers are really bad everywhere. If it were today, there's no way I would go face-to-face. But if the numbers after the first of the year start to stabilize again and that vaccine is, on the way, then hopefully maybe the last half of the semester we'll be able to get in and do a lot of hands-on stuff. But personally, I can't envision doing a 2.5 hour class with a mask on. I don't think you guys want to sit there for 2.5 hours with a mask on. So we'll see what happens. I know we'll start virtually and go from there, but I have to work on some ways to make that class a little different than what it has been in the past because it's always been hands-on. But we'll make it fun and very different than what this was. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. We'll see you next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, you know where to find me.